quarter four, a lot of times is where we see the best deals. From like the buyer side, the investor side.
You get the most room to negotiate and less competition. Kids are back in school. People don't want to move. Investors, when it gets cold out, like they're traveling with family, friends, the competition's not as fierce as spring and summer. So for the best deals, definitely fall, winter.
Hey, Colorado, Chris Lopez here with your August monthly update for what's going on in the residential real estate market in Denver, Colorado Springs, and we'll talk about Pueblo as well. So I have Jeff White and Troy Howell in the studio with me. Good to have you back, guys.
Good to be here. Good afternoon.
All right. And I got Jenny Bayless, who's remote and sitting in Colorado Springs. How are you, Jenny?
Doing great. How about you?
Doing really good. So I always enjoy these monthly podcasts to talk data, banter some. We're going to talk about some trends going on around town. We have an 8-plex to talk about, a 4-plex to talk about, and some news on interest rates. So, full agenda.
Yes.
Jenny, we always start off with trends because that kind of tells us where the market is headed. And, you know, I pull trends from the Denver MLS. You pull trends from the Colorado Springs MLS to give us a good snapshot. But what's going on and what trends have stood out to you down south?
Yeah, just kind of more stagnant than last time we spoke, but nothing materially like too different. Just in terms of median sales price, we're down about 2% from month over month, but we're still up 2.1% year over year. So we're still trending positive on that. Sales are down 5.5% month over month, and they're pretty much flat from last year. But we did cross over to 3.1 months supply for single family homes. So lawn always kind of puts 3 and 4 as it could be either a buyer or seller's market. So maybe that means something. I don't know.
So this is the first time in as long as we've been doing these that the Springs has been above 3 months, right?
Yeah, I've never seen it. I don't think since we've been doing these monthly. So.
Ooh, all right. Yeah. So we have a first.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. What about like those are the trends? I know you've been active with a few deals the last month or two. What's kind of like the sentiment and the feeling just being, you know, boots on the ground and talking to investors and other agents?
Just no one's in a hurry to do anything. It's probably the best way to describe it. It's really interesting. Like, I think I mentioned that I closed on a townhome for a buyer client. And we were able to negotiate quite a bit. I mean, we weren't being, as Jeff would say, disrespectful on it, but you know, we still got quite a bit off, I think. But everyone ended up being good with it at the end. And yeah, it's just everyone's slow. Like I don't know why. There's just no sense of urgency. It's like the complete opposite of what it's been, you know, over the last several years. So I think there's probably just some trepidation in the market would be my guess. So.
Well, I feel like between the election coming up in November, you know, that historically kind of slows things down and pauses because, you know, not the happiest of times, lots of uncertainty with the election coming up. And I think everyone's like, oh, rates are about to drop, right? Everyone's just kind of, I think, very much anticipating on there. And no, I'll wait for rates to drop and get past the election. So I think that's kind of like some of the feel I'm getting from people I've talked with and even my own mindset doing things. Oh, well, rates will probably drop in a month or two. So as far as Denver trends, we're kind of seeing some similar things. What I wanted to point out is we still have that big year over year like inventory gain, you know, year over year like 56% inventory gain, month over month like 1%. The same thing. Big jump up this year versus 2023, but we're not seeing big increases inventory every single month, just kind of that one big jump. Our prices are up about 2% year over year. So about 2% higher, slightly down from last month. And same thing with you. We actually have about 10% less closed properties year over year from August 24 to August 23. And I think this is what's interesting here is even though we've closed fewer properties, which, hey, fewer transactions and fewer buyers out there, our prices are still up 2%.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those don't trend the same direction. So still just kind of, in my opinion, very similar to what you're saying, steady, little stagnant, just not much going on, a lot of waiting game, but kind of going slow and steady, which, hey, 2% appreciation for the year is kind of what was in the range I was expecting this year. So I'm not surprised by this. And then kind of moving on, we're going over like August stats that are closed and all there. And Troy, moving on to some rate news, I think it was right around end of August, maybe middle of August, we started kind of seeing some rates tick down.
Yeah.
What was the timeline and what have we seen them tick down?
I mean, since our last get together, I mean, I was looking at the trend earlier today, and we've probably seen at least a solid 0.5% improvement. Nice. The few months prior to that, it was kind of trickling down a little bit and slightly improving, but we made a pretty big jump the last 2 to 3 weeks.
So we're like today, we are, middle of September. Where are rates kind of sitting around right now for like your owner occupant and investor loans?
Yeah, like 5% down, conventional, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, low 6s, like 6.25 solid. I mean, you can buy into the 5s pretty comfortably.
So 6.25 without any big rate buy downs?
Yeah, without like a big point. I mean, it might be a fractional point depending upon your situation, but that's showing up pretty readily. And then your conventional, non-conventional, shall I say, Fannie, non-Freddie, but VA, FHA, you're seeing in the high 5s.
Wow. What about like a 25% landlord loan? 25% down landlord loan?
Landlord, so like investment property,
yeah,
purchase money deal. Those are still pretty hideous. You might be low 7s, high 6s.
Okay.
Kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, if it's high 6s.
Yeah, I haven't ran one real recently to give you a real accurate, but it's usually been about 3/4 to maybe a point off from what an owner occupied would be.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh. And usually the sweet spot with that is doing 25% down, because you can do 20% down, but the pricing definitely improves when you go to 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a difference. You go to 30% down, it'll get a little bit better, but not as much of a step when you go from 20 to 25.
So, we're still a week before. I think it's next week that the Fed is meeting, where they're most likely gonna, cut the interest rate is what,
Quarter's kind of baked in the cake.
Yeah.
So and that's what gets talked about a lot.
So that's already baked into the rates right now.
Yeah. I mean, what people will traditionally do in the past when they see this Fed cut, or a Fed comes in and does something, it's like, hey, I heard they cut it 1/4. Well, the market was already anticipating it. So it really, a lot of times it won't react. You won't see that day's mortgage interest rates take a move of 1/4 because they were anticipating it. Now, if they came in and threw a half in and it was not expected, then you could see some rate improvement from that. Or if they didn't cut at all, then of course rates would get worse. But we're figuring 1/4 is baked in.
Yeah. So, I mean, some general, timeline, strategies keep in mind. I want you guys to chime with your opinions as well, because, we are, believe it or not, we're entering into Q4 right now, which is still absurd to me that the year's almost over. But, Q4, a lot of times is where we see the best deals from like the buyer side, the investor side. And not usually the best time to list your property, but some really good buying opportunities with, house hack investor. Because especially once you get into like November, December, the holiday season, people usually don't want to move. Life, schools, holidays, snow, all that typical reasons. But if you're out there, buying or thinking about doing transactions, I would be starting to eye things for Q4, like talk to your agent, talk to Troy or your lender to kind of see what lending options are out there. Because you're in the market, Q4, especially the last 2 months, can be some really good times. We usually pick up some like really good deals. I mean, not like steals a century, but like some of the better deals of the year. Hey, we got an extra $10,000 in concessions or $20,000 off or anything like that. Hey, a couple points, we can make a good deal here. And if you're thinking about, maybe selling or exiting a rental property, I'm pretty bullish on the springtime right now. If the market, I say the Denver market, we've been, modest appreciation the last, 2 years for the most part. We get past the election cycle, rates drop a 0.5 point or a point from the, the highs of this year, and we get into like the normal springtime. I think this springtime will be hotter than this year and the last year. So if you're considering about maybe selling a property or doing a trade up, whatever it is, I would start preparing to get that property on the market February or March, with your leases, getting your leases done and fixing anything up. Because I think that will be probably the best time to sell since we've seen the interest rates start going up, and you'll probably get the most eyeballs, most offers, and hopefully the best price. Not the best time to go out there and buy. Go buy this quarter. If you're going to sell Q1.
Agreed.
Yep. What's the stats, Troy, with post-elections? Do rates usually drop because it's more
Yeah.
stable, like whoever the president is.
Yeah. From the information I've looked at, the elections don't have as much of an influence on the rates as what people may think. So we'll see. I mean, I think the overall right now is we're seeing recessionary trends kind of still percolating, which is helping the interest rates, right? And so unemployment's been increasing. Employment market's not as strong as it has been. So that's been helping the interest rate. So the Fed's, tightening has had its effect. Now they're usually slow. They're always looking in the rearview mirror. And so sometimes they overcook it. And that's why we get these recessions. But I've told people over and over again, I think recessions are actually great as long as you have your job, because rates get better, things get cheaper, and real estate tends to do well during recessions, actually. So, yeah, my 2 cents worth.
Cool. Anyone else got 2 cents to throw in?
Yeah, fall's the best time. Like for any buyers out there, you get the most room to negotiate, and I think Jenny it's probably the same thing in the springs, right? Where less competition, kids are back in school, people don't want to move. Investors, when it gets cold out, like they're traveling with family, friends, the competition is not as fierce as spring and summer. So for the best deals, definitely fall, winter. For the purchasing decision, for selling, it's the opposite, spring for sure, spring, summer.
Yeah. And my 2 cents is, if you bought something in the last year or two, check with your lender to see if they offer a free refinance opportunity, because some were throwing that in as a marketing technique over the last year or two. I'm personally in the middle of doing a refinance on a fourplex building that we bought in March. It was 7.5%. Didn't buy down any of the rate at the time of purchase, with the anticipation that it would drop a little bit. The free refinance offer was 6.625. It could get better. I don't know. So, but heck, it's free. So, save a couple $100 to do some paperwork. And then we'll reevaluate it if it drops any further at that point. So, if it's free, you don't have a ton to lose on that end. So,
is that the fourplex where you sold the property and you're going to roll in the proceeds into that one?
Yes, I kind of did my own reverse lazy 1031 on it.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah.
And then, and even if your lender did not, because I know that's been a common marketing tactic with lenders. Hey, we'll give you a free refi. Even if they didn't offer that, it's still worthwhile to go back and talk to your lender. Even if the lenders gave you a loan 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I would call your lender, make that call to him or her the first call, because if you're in the refinance mode, trust me, they want to talk to you, and they will probably want to do some wheeling and dealing to help, keep your business and give you another great loan product. Yeah. So I would, even if they didn't offer it, I would still call them and see what they can do for you.
Yeah, I've had a fair amount of clients calling me talking about it. We're kind of setting things up for like a strike price, right? For like what's the rate we want to get to, and then pull the trigger. So we're starting to line. I've probably got half a dozen or more lined up. Really starting to talk about, hey, where we're at and where we're going, and here's what we want to go for. Just so
you kind of keep that. Then it happens. Are you able to lock it in then for them?
Well, we'll lock it in when we get there, or we're approaching it. But at least then we've had the discussion beforehand, so we can react quickly if they
then you're ready to jump. Okay.
Yeah, versus having the whole conversation and digesting the information. Kind of to your point, talk to the lender now and kind of get things kind of situated as to what you want to do, and then if the rate presents, you're ready to go. So you have kind of that strike price, right? Mm-hmm. That rate. Hey, if it gets, like Jeff, if I said, hey, we can get you down to 5 3/4 and cover the closing costs, kind of like what Jenny was talking about, cover the cost. It's like, oh yeah, let's do it. Okay, it's not there yet, but when it gets there, let's do it. And then you're ready.
Does that mean I have to wait another year?
We didn't want to talk about that yet. Yes, you will. For your primary, you would. Yeah.
And that's a good thing to keep in mind, because we've always had house hackers, run this conundrum. If you're house hacking a property where you live in there as an occupant and you refinance it, that is a new loan, and it resets that 1 year
deed of trust, 12 months, intent to occupy. Yep.
So again, this is why I always talk to a knowledgeable lender before we go out there and make a move. And this is why I want to talk to lenders like Troy that know the game and can give the pros and cons. It may be worthwhile to refi if you're living there. Or might be like, you know what? Keep the rate and go buy another house sooner. Right. And there are some options you can weigh.
Yep. There's some strategies for sure.
All right, so we'll talk more about this, but again, if you're looking for buying, I would definitely be very optimistic right now going into Q4 for like some good buying opportunities with rates dropping a little bit, and being a good time of year. I think next year prices will be higher and the market will be a little bit tougher with more people in the market.
Yeah.
So Jenny, we got some deals to talk about. I don't know if we talked about this on podcast last time, but I know we've had numerous conversations. There was an 8-plex you listed in Colorado Springs, and you got to the closing table. So explain it, talk about the property, a little bit of the investor situation, and what the market was like for a commercial multifamily the last couple months in this market cycle.
Yeah, so I kind of gave them the prep that I was thinking it was going to be kind of a tough sell just with the rates and everything. And, when they bought it, the rates were considerably lower, and they were still in their fixed period of the debt financing. So, they had plenty of time before, their cash flow started getting eaten into, but they sold, they had a business opportunity that they wanted to parlay the funds into. So I thought that was really cool. A really good reason to sell a property, anticipating higher returns for a different asset class. So they went ahead and, we listed it, and we actually got 2 strong offers within like 12 hours or 24 hours of one another. And so that was kind of a fun problem to have. And we ended up going with...
Were you expecting multiple offers?
No.
I was not expecting that.
I wasn't either, but
were you like prepared for crickets?
Yes, I was. And I kind of prepped them for that too, but it was like less than a week, I think, of having listed it. And I definitely sent it out to like a million different people. So
well, you did your job as the listing broker.
Yeah. So I was very happy with the response on that. It's a very nice property located in a really good part of town. It was just a brick mid-century 8-plex. Is a cool building. I liked it. So it worked out really well. Ended up closing, no issues with appraisal, no major inspection issues. We gave them a few bucks for stuff like that, but it closed at pretty close to a 6 cap, just for point of reference for anyone who's keeping tabs on that. So so I was very pleased. The sellers were extremely pleased about everything. And kind of contrary to the reaction that we got to this building, the sellers have a duplex that we also have listed crickets on it. I couldn't believe that. I'm like, the duplex will definitely go. The 8 unit, I don't know if we're going to be able to get that sold. And I'm kind of eating my words on that. So I was completely wrong on both. So
my crystal ball said the same thing, Jenny. So don't feel bad about that.
Yeah. So they're just, they're happy with the sale of the 8-plex. And we're just keeping the duplex. And if anyone's interested in it, great. If not, no hard feelings on that. So that's kind of the
this
plan.
8-plex trade or close right around a 6% cap rate with like kind of like the real expenses and current rates in place. That's not the optimistic pro forma sometimes in OMs.
I did not create a pro forma because I don't know. I always complain about when I see something advertised at a certain cap rate and it's not based on actuals. Like, it's just a personal pet peeve of mine. Like, people are free to advertise however they'd like, but I just wanted to do it based on the last 2 years or year and a half of actual financial data. So
good for you.
Yep.
So it was good. I think the buyer seems really happy with it too. I'd be curious to see what they end up doing with it, but they're an experienced investor and they saw the value in it.
Were they do you know, was this a 1031 exchange for them?
Nope.
Were they like,
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. What kind of financing did they do? Who was the commercial lender on that?
First
Jenny?
Bank.
Okay. I was kind of thinking that.
You should tell them to buy the duplex, Jenny.
I think he's going big, hence the 8 unit. Yeah. So I think he's in the commercial space now. But yeah, that's what I thought was so funny. I'm like, well, duplex is, much more accessible from a financing standpoint and everything, that No, guess not. So
Scalability.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
is 6% cap rate kind of what you say the market cap rate is right now for commercial multifamily down there?
I couldn't tell you. That's kind of, it seemed fair to us. I think that it was a little bit lower than what I've seen on some of the sales. So, I thought it was fair. I don't know what the official number is though, for it, but just based on comps, it was a little bit lower than some similar sales in
Okay.
recent past. So
Was it a class B or C or what would you call it?
I don't know, maybe B-.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving up here,
Yep.
I know, Jeff, you closed on a fourplex here in Denver.
Yep.
Tell us about this story.
Yeah, so it's a fourplex over in South Park Hill neighborhood. So if people listening, it's east of downtown Denver. And this one was really fascinating and actually can make a good case study too, because it was a single family in the front and they had a hallway attaching the fourplex. So technically it was a 5-unit, but the seller split it out, selling the single family separate from the fourplex.
So they were separate parcels.
Yeah. So the prior owner had it combined. Maybe had two. I don't know if he had 2 loans on each of them, like 2 conventional loans to make it
Interesting.
like residential financing. But my buyer, the client wanted to buy a fourplex and owner occupied financing, the Fannie Mae one we love, 5% down, and 3 of the units were already occupied, below market rents between 1,000. So it's the unit mix was 3 one-bedroom units and 1 studio unit, and all 3 out of the 4 were already filled. There was 1 vacancy for the owner occupant to move into. And what was great about this one was it was on the market a while, so there was room to negotiate. An estate sale too. So very motivated seller, did not own any real estate, just was trying to get rid of everything. So they were able to get a total of 25,000 of solar credits.
Yeah, nice
So
work.
we had 19,000 was used to buy down the rate. He got it locked in all the way down to 5.625.
Nice.
Yeah, with this
Yeah.
a non-Troy lender.
Non-Troy
A
lender.
non-Troy lender. Yeah. But here's the thing that where Troy could have stepped in. So this one we actually had to have, because most lenders, when you have any work that needs to be done, if you exceed that seller credit number, in this case 3% of the purchase price, which was $690 was the price. So 690 times 0.03, I think it's like 19,000, that number I gave. And we had 25. So we had 6K, variance there. So that 6K we wanted to use for other improvements, but all the work had to be done before closing. So
Painful.
It made it really stressful on the buyer and seller, right, to get all that done. And
Why couldn't it be escrowed?
because the lender just the underwriter wouldn't agree to it or something. Like it was weird. Like he pretty much all the work had to be done at a closing. They're not going to do an escrow holdback.
Was there like
yeah.
a
Or-
habitability issue with it? Or?
Yeah, I don't know. They just didn't like it. They
Sometimes
said he said just reduce the price by the 6,000, and my buyer was like, "Well, why would I do my 30-year mortgage? Like that's just gonna do nothing for me."
Your payment improves by $35.
Yeah, so he wanted that, but big thing with Troy and Nova Home Loans, and we've done this multiple times for multiple clients, is he could take that 6K and get invoices, and we can get the work invoices and no escrow holdback, no work done before closing. You can have the work done after closing and make sure it's all and that's where it separates Troy with and Nova Home Loans compared to other lenders, and that's a huge selling point for Troy, I feel like. So thank you, Troy.
Yes.
For
Yeah, no, it works out.
Yeah, because
way better,
You
way more
escrowed a few times
Yeah.
for our clients.
Never escrowed.
invoice. He just
Never
escrow
escrowed.
holdback.
Invoice?
We just
Yeah.
collect checks and get the work done.
Oh, even that easier, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, 'cause-
Oh, I knew you got it done. I assumed that was a mechanism.
No.
No escrowing.
Well, I learned something today.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, and when you do that escrow stuff, usually it's going to be 1.5 times the cost of the work. So if you're doing 10K, they want to see maybe 15.
Who brings that 5K?
Yeah, and who's
Right.
going to bring the 5 for the cushion?
Yeah.
And they get refunded back the difference, but they have to have a
Have
little
to float
cushion
the
on it.
money, huh?
So
Oh.
by doing it, in a more structured fashion,
Yeah.
with taking care of invoices for the work to be done, then it cleans it all up, makes it super clean.
Okay.
So way easier. And then what was the other little thing, Jeff, you had mentioned?
Oh,
Mortgage insurance.
Yes. So unfortunately on this one, the client was so when you shop lenders, that's okay. Lenders understand sometimes you want to get the best deal. But Troy's the go-to. But on this particular one, the reason he went with this particular lender was because the mortgage insurance quote was $202, which was much less than the other quotes he had. And that's one of the main reasons he went with this lender.
Wasn't it his brother or something?
Brother's referral. Yeah.
Brother's referral.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's trying to win his business. So I get it.
Yeah.
But what came back after, and he was already pre-approved, and the lender knew it was a fourplex. So it wasn't like, well, he didn't know he went from a single, it was fourplex the whole time. The actual private mortgage insurance was $360
per month. So
per
it jumped
month.
up almost 150 plus bucks.
Yep. So that huge change was like almost in a way, I don't want to call it bait and switch, but kind of misleading. I feel like Troy, you wouldn't tell someone a PMI number and they'd be that far off. You almost probably give them a 360 number and then you come in at 202.
Right. I always like to play it super
other way around.
conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of data points that can change and screw that number up.
Yeah.
But if you don't have all that info, then you want to be on the conservative side.
Yep.
Because it's always better when the numbers improve versus go the other direction. Because he probably did all his analytics on the front end.
Yeah, he had all of this.
And plugged that number in, and all of a sudden now his numbers aren't looking as good. So maybe not a deal killer, but it definitely took a little bit of the shine off.
The worst part was he told him after the appraisal, at like week before
after
closing.
all the money's been spent.
Yes. So he didn't really have. It was kind of a tough spot to be in, but everything worked out. It closed, and what's great about the deal is it takes a little more work on this one. This is a good example of one where he sees more of the long term, the 6 to 12 months time frame. You can't look at it. Oh, I got cash flow from day one. He's looking at it from a wider a period of time. So he'll move into that one unit and then re-optimize and bump up the rents for each of them. And in time, he will live for free. It'll be 6 months to get there. And then 1 year from now, when he moves out and goes to the next one, he'll have that thing really stabilized and cash flowing, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. What's going to be his rent strategy? Is he going to do Section 8?
Yes. So he's going to move into one, and then as they turn over, as leases come up, because some of the leases are to June of next year, so he has to deal with a couple of those.
Yep.
But one's moving out in December, so you turn that one over, and then as the other two come up, he'll turn the other two over. So it's a little more patience involved, a little more work, but he's excited. Yeah, he's going to get his own unit, and he'll cash flow when he moves out, it'll be something like $2,000 per month net cash flow. Jenny.
Wow, that's really good.
Because of to give you the numbers on Section 8 rents for Denver Housing Authority, because this is City County Denver, $2,019 for one bedroom, $1,835 for a studio. So he'll get $7,900 if you add up all those numbers when he moves out in gross rents for a $4,800 a month mortgage.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be, and that's a pretty good rate, right? 5.625.
Oh, that's awesome.
He
bought it down pretty aggressively, but he's got good cash flow on it now.
High PMI.
High PMI.
Yeah.
But good rate.
Yeah. So that's one, Jenny, where it's like deals like that pop up where you have to kind of deal with like inherited tenants and do a little more work. You're not going to get the vacant one that's completely ready to go and you could just put your own tenants in. But 1 year from now, he'll be cash flowing in that much per month and also that much closer to his goal. His goal, he wants to be a rock star, basically, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
He plays in a band. And
he's like a real musician.
He's actually he plays,
right.
legitimate. Yeah, he's not just some high school kid that thinks he's a magician. He's legit. And he'll get there. He's not that far away from his goal. Like this brings him, I think, about 50 to 60% of his goal to hit.
Yeah, you found him a great property. So.
Well,
great job.
But you made the deal too. I mean, you negotiated. You got that big credit coming in, so you can buy things down.
Yeah,
and then you've got the strategy on the rent side too. So it's a culmination of all those strategies. To make this thing, make it hum.
Yeah, make it optimize. Yeah,
awesome.
So I ended up going to a multifamily conference this past weekend. It was an Interlochen, so North Denver area. It's kind of the last one I got a ticket there and I got to go. And it was a lot more geared towards like, bigger apartment buildings and commercial, but they had had a few presenters on economic data and just trends data. They had a guy there from Real Pages, Scott Trench from Bigger Pockets was there and he's a big data guy. But a lot of people were talking about just inventory. And they were saying the punchline, which I found very interesting, was the two things I walked away is, hey, we're going to have an inventory glut coming online here next year and a half. but essentially in come 26, 27, new delivery of multifamily just essentially drops off a cliff. There's just very little permits in the pipeline. Like we're at like a multi-decade high for projects coming online. Generally speaking, in most markets, Denver's kind of following the same trend as well. But then once rates started going up, and then also, Denver passed some new legislation as well for, what developers have to do. There in Denver and other markets, there's just like no inventory coming along. So like, hey, look, especially in some multifamily units, we're going to see, softness in rents, which we've seen this year. That'll happen this year and next year. But come 2026,
It's going to take off.
they were very bullish. Like, hey, we're going to be in a low inventory situation again. And they were looking back at old data of just, when this happens, we have high inventories coming online. It's short-term pain. But they said in markets where they've had that short-term inventory glut, usually long-term it's worked very, very well. Like developers are making the right investment over like the multi-decade investment. Sometimes they all just hit at once or, make a short-term glut. But like long-term, we're still short of houses. There's no permits coming behind this. Next year, it will be soft, but there's going to be a lot more demand just because inventory will be really constrained over the next, 18 months to 2 years.
I think that, and Jenny, I want to hear your thoughts too. Do you think there's, I call them, it's kind of like some of the inventory, I feel like 10 to 20% of it that's out there right now in the Denver market is kind of like the wish pricer type sellers.
Only
that,
10 to 20%?
Maybe it's higher. Yeah.
Higher.
What I mean by that
generous.
is
You're being
that
generous.
they want, they expect their 2000, the COVID price, right? They want that high price, but they forget the rate is much higher than, when that, 2021. And they're not really a motivated seller, right? They'll just list at the price. If they get the price and someone is willing to pay that, they'll sell it. But it's really kind of like fake inventory to me. Maybe it's higher than 20%, but I feel like that's a good chunk of some of the Denver inventory is so it appears to be really high to spend in years, which is great for buyers. But then you have a good chunk of it that's just sitting out there because these wish pricing of sellers that they think they'll get, type 2021 price for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you, thank you. Remind me of my second
Yeah.
point, which was, same economists were all saying, hey, who's seeing the amount of deal flow you expect from distressed assets? And everyone said, no, we're not seeing it. They're like, yeah, that's, I think everyone kind of expected a lot more distressed multifamily just assets coming along. I mean, I did as well. But a couple of the data people, they are projecting next like 6 months or so, they think, sales activity, sales will start picking up big time. Again, for commercial multifamily 5+ units, but it's really interesting hearing about that and saying, hey, activity should pick up a lot the next 6 months. Come post-election, especially what's going on. We're seeing interest rates drop, which will get some more buyers in there. It'll get sellers closer to them or that may work for them. And really a lot of the expenses, the supply chain expenses, insurance and taxes. I mean, we've all seen big jump ups in those. And those should be, relatively, flat for a little bit. Like the big increases, I think have
definitely stabilized.
That's what I'm looking for. So they were bullish on activity starting to really pick up come next couple of months. And there were a few, big multifamily buyers there. And 2 of them said they haven't bought a property in 18 months. Okay. And they're just in the process of buying the first property. Part of that was they were, trying to write a few of the deals that got upside down on them the last couple of years, just, with the expenses and rates. But also just from opportunities you're seeing, but they're getting back in the market as well. So with all that said, I think we'll see more sales activity. And I think that'll carry down to multifamily, to residential, to everything.
Yeah.
Was there anything spoken about the difference between, I assume that all the new construction for the multifamilies that you guys were discussing is the fancy,
Class A.
Type of buildings. Did they mention anything, a difference between that being a quote unquote glut versus more affordable housing and that the absorption rate on that?
Yeah, they did, mostly from just like the rent cascading effect, where a lot of these Class A multifamilies, what a lot of them are doing is they're not lowering their rents per se. They're just giving like 3 months of free rents concession because, on their income statement looks better for the bank and for selling. Oh, hey, rents are at this. Then we have a marketing expense of this. So
inducements.
yeah, but effectively it is, it is pushing down the rental rate, right? That effectively lowers your rate or your rental rate.
Right.
And so since a lot of the Class A are giving those concessions, that's pushing downward pressure on Class B, Class C as well. So they talked about downward rental rates on there, some pressure again. Nothing, some markets are, it's all market dependent, of course, but overall, okay, some softness on there, nothing big. But again, come in a year and a half, they expect rents to start increasing again as this glut comes online. The other thing they were saying is they've seen a lot more people renew and stay in place. So fewer people are, moving to other properties, which I think a lot of, landlords are very cognizant of, hey, what can we do to keep you here? Yeah. And then also the other trend, and this is based on, I think, survey data they get from their multifamily clients, is there's been a big drop off in people leaving an apartment building to go rent a single family home. I guess historically, there's been a bigger shift of that, but now there's a lot fewer people doing that, which again, seeing how high some single family rental rates have gone up, and this is me just being, comparing rates. I'm not surprised by that. I mean, the rental rate jumps we've seen like 3 and 4 bedroom houses have been pretty dramatic the last couple of years. So I think that's part of it as well. But a lot more people are staying in place, but they're like, hey, long term, it's going to be, as a landlord, it'll be good times.
Yeah.
And they were all projecting that it's all getting, we're getting closer to light at the end of the tunnel for, rates loosening up and activity loosening up as well. But everyone was like, the punchline between all the operators, all the data people was, we're all seeing way less distressed assets than we expected to.
Nice.
And you'll probably start seeing some more come online, but, lenders are really working on, extending and getting creative, to kind of like keep the deal alive, because no one wants to go through the foreclosure process.
No. That's great info.
That was that.
It was very interesting.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah. It has a knock effect on our residential side, our 1 to 4 unit. So it's good to hear.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other fun tidbits or random conferences you guys went to?
No random conferences.
Cool. Great.
Nothing to top that.
As always, Jenny, I appreciate you coming out. Troy, Jeff, thanks for making time and coming to the studio.
Absolutely.
If anyone out there has questions, reach out to all of us. Jenny's our go-to person down south. Troy's our go-to London for Colorado. Jeff's our go-to guy for up here in Denver. If you guys have questions, reach out to us. If you want to see some of the data or stats, we gave you a very, very high level. We have a lot more slides and data that we can share with you as well if you want to get into it. But data tends to put people asleep on podcasts. So come reach us. We're happy to have a phone call or a cup of coffee. And as a quick side note, Jenny, I just sent you a 12-unit deal in Pueblo that someone sent me. I want to get your opinion on there as well. So
cool.
That might be something we talk about next podcast as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's a 12-unit value add in Pueblo. So I got to get Jenny's opinion on there.
Expertise.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Jenny, thank you. Troy, thank you. Jeff, thank you. And out there listening and watching, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next month.